The National Missing and Unidentified Persons System estimates that there are roughly 90,000 missing persons in the United States alone at any given time. While scientific advancements such as genealogy testing have solved many of these mysterious disappearances, many more remain unsolved and will likely remain so. Sadly, not all families will receive any semblance of closure. The family of Madeleine McCann, for example, has been searching for clues in their toddler's unsolved disappearance for over a decade. The lack of evidence in some of these missing person cases not only hinders the investigation, but leaves a lot of room for conjecture, speculation, and conspiracy. The ominous disappearance of an Australian pilot in 1978, for example, has led many to blame aliens. While this may not be the most logical assumption, the mysterious nature of some of these cases often leaves us grasping at straws, trying to make sense of a disappearance with little to no evidence. The most chilling unsolved disappearances I'll cover in this video involve a broad range of shadowy entities, from the Italian mafia to secret satanic worshippers, and they have implicated some of the world's most powerful people. Let me know what you think of any of these cases in the comments section. I'd love to hear some of the theories of my viewers, and if you'd like to see a more in-depth video on any of these specific cases. And if you enjoy this content, make sure to like and subscribe to help me grow this channel. The mysterious disappearance of Emmanuella Orlandi in the Vatican. On a sweltering summer evening in June 1983, 15-year-old Emmanuella Orlandi disappeared from Vatican City in central Rome after attending a routine music lesson. The daughter of a prominent Vatican employee, Orlandi enjoyed the religious center's idyllic gardens and often ran into Pope John Paul II. Her brother Pietro recalled their city being more of a village, inhabited by a close-knit group of around 6 families. But Orlandi's disappearance on June 22nd of that year launched decades of kaleidoscopic conspiracy theories that included the Italian mafia, Vatican Satanists, sex trafficking, and sacrifice. On the last day anyone saw her, Orlandi called her sister after her music class to tell her that a representative from Avon Cosmetics had offered her a job. When Orlandi failed to return home the following day, her parents called the teacher from her class and the police. Her mysterious disappearance was declared a missing person case that day. A witness initially reported seeing a girl matching Orlandi's description entering a green BMW near the music school on the night of her disappearance, but that bit of information would lead nowhere. Shortly after this maddening detail surfaced, the Orlandis received an ominous phone call promising to return the girl if the Vatican released Mehmet Ali Agca, a Turkish national who was languishing in prison for having attempted to assassinate the Pope 2 years earlier. Unfortunately, that development proved fruitless as well. It has since been suggested that the Rome-based crime syndicate Banda della Magliana kidnapped Orlandi to force the Vatican to pay them back for an outstanding loan. The girlfriend of the leader of that criminal organization, Enrico de Pedis, later claimed that de Pedis told her that Orlandi was indeed kidnapped and killed. The most hair-raising theories, however, claim that the Vatican, local police, and high-profile lawmakers kidnapped Orlandi and forced her into sexual servitude. At least, this is what the Vatican's chief exorcist, Father Gabriel Amorth, believes. Amorth was appointed by Pope John Paul II himself. Amorth is quoted as stating, "This was a crime with a sexual motive. Parties were organized with a Vatican gendarme acting as a recruiter of the girls. The network involved diplomatic personnel from a foreign embassy to the Holy See. I believe Emmanuella ended up as a victim of this circle." In 2019, a promising tip suggested that Orlandi had been buried in a Vatican tomb. Tragically, this tip too yielded no results. Her family has organized demonstrations in recent years hoping to spur a renewed investigation into her unsolved disappearance, but to no avail. Madeleine McCann, the most heavily reported missing person case in modern history. The story of McCann's mysterious disappearance began on the night of May 3rd, 2007, at a resort in Praia da Luz in Portugal. Kate and Jerry McCann left Madeleine and her two twin siblings asleep in their rental apartment at the resort, which was on the ground floor, and went to have dinner with friends at a nearby tapas restaurant. The adults returned 2 hours later at 10 p.m. to find their eldest child gone. Later, the McCanns remembered how their daughter had asked them over breakfast the morning of her mysterious disappearance, "Why didn't you come when my brother and I cried last night?" The devastated parents were then led to believe that someone uninvited may have been in their apartment, and maybe even more than once. One of the first promising suspects in McCann's missing person case was 33-year-old Robert Murat. The British-Portuguese real estate consultant not only lived nearby, but a man matching his description was seen around 9:15 p.m. on the night of McCann's disappearance, walking towards his home carrying a child. But the Portuguese police cleared him when they found no evidence of his involvement with the children. Next, the McCanns themselves were added to the list of suspects. Some investigators pointed that Madeleine McCann actually died in the Praia da Luz apartment and that her parents fabricated this narrative of child abduction in order to cover it up. This theory seemed to hold some water, considering the fact that the dogs that were brought on the scene seemed curiously alert inside the apartment and around the McCann family car, though no body was ever found. The grieving parents were officially removed as suspects in 2008, and the missing person case grew to become an unprecedented media phenomenon in the United Kingdom. Ever since a 2009 report found that the region of Portugal in which McCann went missing was awash with what we'll call, for YouTube's sake, sex criminals, many have posited that the toddler was abducted by local sex traffickers. In an ominous turn of events, former MP Sir Clement Freud, who had a home nearby and knew the McCanns, was later outed as a sex criminal. From later claims that Hillary Clinton's campaign advisor John Podesta and his brother snatched the girl from her home, to theories that she simply walked off, McCann's mysterious disappearance has never been solved, whether by accidental death, sex trafficking, or abduction. McCann's remains one of the strangest missing person cases in modern history. The case of Jennifer Kess, who vanished in her own home. Jennifer Kess had it all: a loving family, a loyal boyfriend, and a reliable job. When she disappeared on January 23, 2006, her family knew that something horrible must have happened to her. Although there is some grainy footage of a person of interest and Kess's abandoned car was later found, her mysterious disappearance nonetheless continues to elude investigators. On the evening before that January day, the 24-year-old Floridian returned home from work and chatted with her family over the phone. She called her boyfriend Robert Allen around 10 p.m. and then went to bed. The following day, texts and calls to her went unreturned. Coworkers were surprised that she didn't show up to work by 11 a.m. Her parents drove from Tampa to Orlando to check if she was home. They found her car missing, but everything else seemed normal. Footage was retrieved from her apartment complex surveillance system, which showed an unidentified person dropping off Kess's car at noon on the day of her disappearance. Unfortunately, any distinguishing characteristics of theirs were obscured by the apartment's gate. Journalists covering the case reported the mysterious figure was thus the luckiest person of interest ever. In the following frustrating years, police have found Kess's abandoned Chevy Malibu, but not much else. The car yielded a latent print, which was deemed too minuscule to reveal any helpful information. Additionally, none of the valuable items in Kess's vehicle had been taken, which suggested that her unsolved disappearance wasn't instigated by a robbery. Authorities pivoted from a lack of evidence to the acquaintances and friends of Kess's who might know more. Kess's brother and boyfriend both investigated one of Kess's ex-boyfriends on their own, but he was quickly ruled out. An older work colleague who was interested in Kess was also cleared as a suspect. By this point, investigators had no more clues to follow. Kess's credit cards went unused and her cell phone was turned off. Kess, it seemed, had simply evaporated into thin air. It has now been 14 years since Kess's mysterious disappearance. The unsolved disappearance of Mora Murray, who vanished on a remote road. Shortly after 7 p.m. on the night of February 9, 2004, the Grafton County Sheriff's Department in New Hampshire began receiving reports of a car accident. The first call notified police that a black Saturn had been wedged against a snowbank in Woodsville, New Hampshire. The second came from a local school bus driver named Butch Atwood, who said a young woman was inside the car and appeared unharmed, but she was notably cold to the touch. Atwood also said that the young woman had begged him not to call the police. He obliged her at first and then reported the incident once he got home. When police finally arrived at the scene, the woman was nowhere to be seen, but they believed it was Mora Murray, a 21-year-old university student who had recently gone missing, and indeed they were able to confirm that it was her car. Murray's mysterious disappearance initially seemed clear-cut. Murray likely got into a drunk driving accident which could have then resulted in her death in the nearby woods, but the case grew more sinister as police continued to investigate it. The last person to see Murray alive and well before Atwood was her father, Fred. The two had dined together the night before the black Saturn was found in the snow. Fred recalled how the two of them had a perfectly normal meal. He then lent Murray his car so that she could drive back to campus in time for a party. Murray then crashed the car on her way home from the party at around 2:30 a.m. When Murray called her father to explain the incident, he assured her that she would need to report the crash to the DMV the next day, but that there was nothing to worry about. When she finally got home that night, Fred recalled how his daughter seemed perfectly fine, but the next day, Murray disappeared. The morning of February 9th, Murray contacted her professors and told them that she was taking a week off due to a death in the family. She then packed up her dorm room, drove to an ATM in her own car and withdrew $280, went to the DMV and then bought a large amount of alcohol. She called her own voicemail at 4:37 p.m. These were the last pieces of evidence regarding Murray's whereabouts and activities. When police found her car later that night, they also found printed directions to a condo complex in Burlington, Vermont, and phone records showing that she had called one of the owners. A note to her boyfriend detailing their relationship issues was then found in her cleared-out dorm room. Despite purported sightings of her in the years since, Murray has remained a missing person ever since. Tara Calico's unsolved disappearance and reappearance in a Polaroid. On September 20th, 1988, Tara Calico left her home in Valencia County, New Mexico for her daily bike ride. The 19-year-old was never seen by her loved ones in the flesh again. But her mother does believe that she surfaced in a Polaroid the following year, in which she is shown tied up. Investigators have been baffled ever since. As she headed out the door the morning of her disappearance, Calico jokingly told her mother, Patty Dole, that she'd better come find her if she didn't get home by noon. The young woman had a tennis date with her boyfriend at 12:30 p.m. and told her mother that she was determined to be back by then. When noon came and went, Calico's mother drove up and down her usual bike route to look for her, but to no avail. Her mother then contacted the police, but a subsequent search party yielded few clues. Pieces of Calico's Walkman and cassette tape were found on her route, but police were convinced that these had been broken by Tara on purpose in order to lead police to her. Then her missing persons case went cold for the next 9 months. Authorities began to ask questions about Calico's parents and home life. They tried to find out if there were reasons for her mysterious disappearance, such as abuse. Police found nothing but 2 distressed parents who loved their daughter dearly and wanted nothing more than for her to be found safely. On June 15, 1989, the authorities found a Polaroid in a convenience store parking lot 1,500 miles away. It showed a teenage girl starkly resembling Calico and a young boy, both lying on sheets and a pillow, tied up with duct tape over their mouths. Calico's mother felt certain that this was her daughter. The girl in the photograph had the same scar on her thigh as Calico, While the FBI remained skeptical, experts at Scotland Yard in the UK agreed with her mother's assessment. Calico's disappearance took yet another distressing turn when the Henley family came forward to claim that the young boy in the photo was their son. Michael Henley's remains had been found in the Zuni Mountains in 1990. However, it's likely that he died of hypothermia after wandering away from his family's campsite. Sheriff Reen Rivera of Valencia County suggested a rational explanation for the missing persons case in 2008. He said he had received information that Calico was killed in a car accident while riding her bike. After being hit, Rivera said that the teenage driver disposed of the body in fear. However, no arrests followed this claim, and Calico's parents moved to Florida in a desperate attempt to start anew. Calico has never been found. Disappearances such as these leave families torn apart, and it's unfortunate that anyone should go through this type of nightmare. Though there have been cases in which missing persons have been found after years or even decades, we can only hope for the families that they will find closure eventually, or that they eventually do find their loved ones safe and secure. I'd like to thank you for watching this video and invite you to like and subscribe if you enjoy this content. Stay safe out there.